Hello there, students. This lecture is about congressional privileges and gerrymandering, and also some other powers that they have. So I had you all do an assignment last week on congressional salaries. In 1789, the salary of a congressman was about $6 a day, which, to be fair, was a lot for 1789. As of 2014, the average yearly salary for a congressman was $174,000 a year. The 27th Amendment, we've gone over in class, it says, no law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until after an election the representatives shall have intervened. So basically, they can give themselves pay raises, but they can't take effect until after the next election term. So that the idea is representatives will work harder for their constituents so that they can get reelected. And that if they're not doing their job well, then they won't get pay raises. But really what this has led to is Congress just focusing even more on re-election to an extent. This bill was introduced in 1789, and it wasn't given an expiration date because I guess we used to just not give expiration dates to amendments like we do now. It was not ratified until 1992, so it's the oldest proposed amendment outside of the Bill of Rights. Other benefits that congressmen get is the franking privilege. They get to send stuff through the mail for free. They don't have to put postage on it. Their allowances allow them to pay their staff. They can fund trips home for free, so like flights, trains, buses, whatever. They have free use of telephones, newsletters, etc., etc. So it's not just mail, but the mail is pretty important because one of the things that Congress has control over is the post office. That is a constitutional power. They control the post office. Then there's the income tax deduction. They can use that income tax deduction for themselves on up to 2 of their residences. A lot of congressmen have 2 residences minimum. Some of them have more. They also have pensions. They have $150,000 that they make in pensions for life after they retire from Congress. $150,000 a year for life. Other privileges in the Constitution include that they can't be arrested in all cases except treason, felony, or breach of the peace while they're in Congress or on their way to or from Congress. There are some funny instances in the 1800s of, like, congressmen hitting women with horses, and then, because they were in Congress, they couldn't be arrested. Just weird stuff. It's another reason why sometimes there are duels and, like, people swinging at each other with poker sticks and stuff like that. Or fire pokers. You also can't be sued for what you say on the House or Senate floor. There was a Supreme Court case in 1979 called Hutchinson versus Proxmire that said that senators and congressmen cannot be sued for what they put into newsletters or to news releases. So libel laws don't necessarily apply to them. Libel is a fancy word that means written lies. So technically, congressmen can say what they want on the floor. They can put what they want in their newsletters or in the news. They can't be sued for it like other people. They have libel protections because of their special role in public. They also have the power of exclusion. They can decide whether to seat an elected member of Congress. So if, I don't know, you're from a minority party and they don't want you to have a special job, like the Speaker of the House or any other party leader, they don't have to give you a seat in Congress. They can exclude you, and then you might not get reelected because if you're excluded from all of the good committees, you don't really have much to show as far as the work that you've done in Congress. There's also censure. You can be censured in the House or the Senate. It's a formal vote of disapproval of a member's action. So it's like a way of, like, it's a slap on the wrist if you've done something that is unsavory to the public. Recently, it's not just Congress that can be censured. Who was it? Kellyanne Conway was censured and then counseled. For, what was it? Like, the alternative facts comment, I think? Something like that. But mostly this applies to the Senate and the House. Filibuster. That applies to the Senate only. It's the power to prevent a bill from being voted on by debating it indefinitely until time runs out. In order to stop a filibuster, you need a 3/5 vote in the Senate to stop it. That's called a cloture vote. Again, there are 435 members in the House, and each are apportioned to a specific group within each state. And the apportionment of each of those members is based on population. The Reapportionment Act of 1929 said that every 10 years, the census will tell the government how many representatives each state gets. So if a state's population goes up, the number of representatives that they have go up. It also says, the Reapportionment Act of 1929, that state legislatures will draw the districts, hoping, I guess the hope here is that state legislatures would be unbiased, but that's kind of silly. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The 20s were a weird time. This is what the last census reapportionment map looks like. North Carolina didn't have any changes to their apportionment. We have 13 House of Representatives and then 2 senators still, so our apportionment did not change. But you can see several states, including Louisiana, went up. Or they lost people, sorry, they're orange. States like Florida and Texas went up. They gained representatives. This is a district map of North Carolina. So we have, 13 representatives in the House that represent different districts in North Carolina. You can see where Henderson County is in here. They're down here. The westernmost part of the mountains are over here, and then Buncombe County is kind of like drawn out of the mountains and included with some other like pretty conservative areas, possibly to dilute the vote, but that's for the Supreme Court to decide. Speaking of which, the Supreme Court has done several cases on redistricting, so what I want you to do for your flipped assignment in this lecture is to just summarize the following 2 cases, and I'll attach the dockets from OYES from both cases so you can read into them further or listen to the audio from them. So the first is Baker versus Carr from 1962, and then there's Reynolds versus Sims in 1964. Both of those Supreme Court cases said that states must make state legislative districts as equal in population as possible. So you can't have like one district that's significantly bigger than others. So those are the first 2, and they state the same thing. Then there's Westbury versus Sanders, which says that states must make congressional districts as equal as population as possible. So basically it says the same thing as Baker and Reynolds, except it applies it to the federal Congress, not state legislative districts. Also, districts must be contiguous, so you can't like have like a district that's drawn over here and then like have another little dot of it up here. They have to be connected to one another, so you can't spread them out. And they have to be as compact as possible. After states are told how many districts they have been apportioned, the state legislature gets to draw new districts. Gerrymandering occurs when the party in charge of the state government draws lines in a manner that favors their party. And for some reason, that's not illegal, kind of. I'm going to have you guys read about it, actually. This is the FRQ that you all did on your last test about congressional reapportionment and redistricting happening every 10 years. The first thing you're supposed to do is to define congressional reapportionment and then explain one reason why it's important to states. Then you were to define congressional redistricting. So you have to define reapportionment and redistricting. You have to explain 2 goals of politicians when they gerrymander during redistricting. Obviously, the main goal is to ensure that they get reelected. A more long-term goal is to ensure that their party stays in power, which could potentially be until the next census. Then you had to describe 2 limits that the Supreme Court placed on congressional redistricting, which you would find up here in Baker versus Carr, Reynolds versus Sims, or Westbury versus Sanders. Alright, that is all. We'll see you all